Have you ever looked back and realized that what you called heartbreak was actually protection? That maybe the person who walked away didn't abandon you. They were removed by God's mercy. It hurts, I know, because when you love deeply, distance feels like betrayal. But sometimes heaven has to break your heart to save your soul. You thought that connection was divine. You prayed for it, fought for it, and maybe even tried to convince God to bless it. But every time you got close, something fell apart. The timing failed, the words changed, the peace disappeared, and you asked yourself, why does everything I love seem to leave? The truth is, not every ending is rejection. Some endings are redirections. God saw something you couldn't. He heard conversations you didn't hear. He saw plans that would have crushed your peace. He knew that if he let you stay there, you would have started to mistake pain for purpose, manipulation for meaning, and attachment for love. So, he intervened. He didn't take something good from you. He saved you from something that looked good but wasn't. It's hard to accept at first, because your heart only feels the absence, but your spirit knows the truth. God's no was the most loving thing he could have said. He protected you from nights of tears, from words that would have wounded you, from futures that would have drained you. What felt like rejection was actually redemption. You see, protection doesn't always look like peace at first. Sometimes it looks like pain. But that pain is the evidence that God stepped in, because if he hadn't, you'd still be fighting for something that was slowly breaking you. One day, you'll thank him for the unanswered prayer that kept you safe. But for now, just know this: you didn't lose love. You escaped from something that was never meant to carry it. Before we continue, check if you're subscribed to the channel. If this message touched your heart, like this video and tell me in the comments, what do you think God was protecting you from? Not every love that feels right is meant to stay. Some come dressed as peace, but carry storms behind their smiles. And the hardest truth to accept is that not everyone sent into your life was sent by God. Some were allowed to reveal what still needed healing in you. You prayed for love, and someone appeared. They said all the right things, mirrored your dreams, made you believe that this time it was different. And for a moment, you felt seen. But something inside, you'd a whisper, a quiet warning, didn't feel settled. You ignored it, thinking it was fear. But that was discernment. That was God trying to protect you before you confused comfort with calling. You see, the enemy doesn't always show up as destruction. Sometimes he shows up as desire. He sends distractions wrapped in affection, people who look like answers but carry old patterns in new faces. And while your heart celebrates what it thinks is a blessing, your spirit already knows it's a lesson. God allows these near connections to expose what your eyes can't see. How easily you attach, how quickly you forget your boundaries, how deeply you crave love that only he can give. And when you start to depend on someone more than you depend on him, he steps in to interrupt the illusion. That sudden distance, that unexpected ending, it wasn't coincidence, it was correction. Because God won't let you settle for chemistry when he designed you for covenant. He won't let you build your future on someone who was never meant to stay. You thought you were being rejected, but you were being rescued, because what you called meant to be would have slowly drained the very light God was trying to grow inside of you. Sometimes protection feels like loss because you can't see what was ahead, the manipulation, the betrayal, the exhaustion that waited quietly beyond the surface. But God saw. He always does. And that's why he ended it before it could end you. God's protection often begins long before you even realize you need it. While you were asking him to make that relationship work, he was already seeing what would happen if it did. He saw the messages you didn't see, the intentions you couldn't read, and the pain that was waiting quietly behind promises that sounded beautiful, but weren't built on truth. You saw potential, he saw patterns, you saw connection, he saw control, you saw love, he saw what that love would do to your peace. That's why he stepped in, not to take joy away from you, but to keep you from being destroyed by what you mistook for it. God sees the parts of people we romanticize away. He sees the manipulation hidden behind charm, the insecurity disguised as passion, the inconsistency covered by sweet words. And while you were praying for things to move forward, he was quietly rearranging circumstances to pull you back. The unanswered texts, the sudden distance, the confusion that didn't make sense at the time, all of it was him. He allowed you to feel the discomfort so you would notice what your heart kept justifying. Because he knows that sometimes the only way to protect your purpose is to let you feel the pain of almost losing it. That distance you hated was actually divine defense. When you asked, "God, why are they changing?" he whispered, "I'm revealing." When you cried, "Why are they leaving?" he answered, "I'm removing." You didn't lose something good, you escaped something dangerous. He pulled you out before the promises could turn poisonous. And one day you'll understand that the silence, the separation, and the sudden shift weren't random. They were the sound of God's mercy moving, because while you were focused on what you wanted, he was focused on what you needed. Safety, healing, and a future free from emotional captivity. So, if it ended abruptly, thank him quietly, because he saw everything you didn't, and he chose to protect you before you even knew you were in danger. The hardest part about divine protection is that it rarely feels like protection at first. It feels like loss, like rejection, like abandonment. Because when your heart is attached, even God's rescue can feel like betrayal. You prayed for peace, and then he removed the person you thought would bring it. You asked for love, and then he ended the story before it ever began. And you whispered, "God, why would you take this away if you know how much it meant to me?" But the truth is, what you called love was already becoming a slow form of destruction. He didn't take it to hurt you, he took it to heal you. The pain of being saved is real, because your heart only sees what's gone, not what was waiting to wound you. You mourn the person, the moments, the promises, without realizing that you're also mourning the version of yourself that would have stayed trapped in that cycle. God knew how deeply you would have lost yourself trying to keep what was never meant to stay. So he ended it, not out of anger, but out of mercy. Livramento dói porque ele desmonta ilusões. It reveals how easily we call comfort destiny and how quickly we attach meaning to what was only meant to be a moment. But it's in that breaking that he begins to rebuild you. Stronger, wiser, softer. The tears you cry now are cleansing you from everything that would have kept you bound later. So, don't resent the pain. It's proof that heaven intervened, that God loved you enough to interrupt what you would have never walked away from on your own. Because he saw how the story would end, and he couldn't let you write your ruin with your own hands. One day, you'll look back on this ache and realize it was mercy disguised as heartbreak. And your tears will turn into gratitude for the love that left before it could destroy you. If this message spoke to your heart, write in the comments, "I thank God for protecting me." If you could see what God saw, you would have stopped asking why a long time ago. Because his protection was not random. It was rescue from something you couldn't have survived. He didn't just end a relationship, he prevented a collapse. He stopped a future that would have quietly broken you piece by piece. There were moments ahead that you couldn't imagine. Arguments that would have drained your joy, manipulation hidden under care, loneliness disguised as love. You would have stayed, thinking you could fix it, thinking your love was enough. But God saw how much of yourself you would have lost trying to be enough for someone who never planned to meet you halfway. So he intervened. He shut the door you were begging him to open. You thought you were fighting for love, but you were fighting against his mercy. Because that person wasn't sent to complete you. They were sent to expose what still needed healing in you. They were a mirror, not a match, and God knew that if he let it continue, you'd confuse pain with purpose and calling with chaos. He saw the nights you would have spent crying alone. He saw the silent anxiety, the constant uncertainty, the slow erosion of your peace. He saw the version of you that would have stopped praying, stopped believing, stopped recognizing yourself, and he couldn't let that happen. So instead of giving you what you wanted, he gave you what you needed: distance. Every unanswered prayer, every door that closed, every goodbye that broke you, it was him. He was keeping you from betrayal you never would have seen coming. He was saving you from words that would have crushed your spirit and choices that would have cost your future. You didn't lose a blessing, you escaped a burden. And one day, when your heart is healed and your peace is whole, you'll look back and whisper, "Thank you, God, for stopping what I thought I wanted." Because what he prevented wasn't love. It was loss disguised as it. There are moments when heaven goes quiet. You pray, you plead, you cry, and still nothing. No sign, no peace, no confirmation. And in that silence, you begin to wonder if God is ignoring you. But what if that silence was the answer? What if his quiet was the shield you didn't recognize? Because sometimes the greatest protection God gives you is a lack of response. He doesn't always send storms to stop you. Sometimes he just withholds his voice, and that's enough. He knows that if he said yes to everything you asked for, your heart would end up carrying weights it was never built to bear. So he lets you feel the pause. He lets the door stay closed. He lets the call go, unanswered, not to hurt you, but to help you see that peace isn't found in getting what you want, but in trusting what he withholds. Silence is not absence. It's intention. It's God slowing you down so you don't walk into what looks right but leads to ruin. He knows how easily emotion can drown discernment. So while you interpret his quiet as distance, heaven is busy rerouting your destiny away from damage. The silence you curse is the same silence that saved you. You see, God doesn't always explain protection. He performs it. He doesn't justify his timing, he perfects it. You ask for a sign, and he gives you stillness. Because if he spoke, you'd run toward what his mercy is trying to end. So he waits. He lets confusion settle until you finally notice the lack of peace that's been whispering, "This is not it." That uneasiness in your heart, that constant uncertainty, that's not love. That's warning. And when God stays silent long enough, he's giving you the space to see what his words would have already revealed. That not every open door was meant to be walked through. One day, you'll realize that his silence was never rejection. It was redirection. He wasn't ignoring you. He was interceding for you, quietly, powerfully, perfectly. Because sometimes God protects you not by speaking, but by staying silent long enough for your spirit to remember what peace feels like without that person. Rejection hurts. It cuts deep, because it touches that hidden part of you that still believes love should have stayed. You replay every word, every moment, every goodbye, trying to understand what went wrong. But sometimes what you call rejection is heaven's way of saying, this is where you stop giving what was never being received. God doesn't allow rejection to humiliate you. He allows it to realign you. He lets certain people walk away so you'll stop shrinking to be loved. He lets the door close so you won't keep knocking on what was never meant to open. Because while you were fighting to be chosen, he was preparing someone who would recognize your worth without needing to be convinced of it. Rejection feels cruel when you're in it. But look closer. It's often the only language God can use when your heart is too loyal to let go. He knows you wouldn't walk away on your own, so he lets someone else do it for you, not because you're unworthy, but because you were being misplaced. You were giving sacred parts of yourself to someone who couldn't hold them. What you saw as abandonment was actually alignment. God wasn't taking love away, he was taking confusion away, because he knew that if that person had stayed, you would have kept trying to heal where the wound kept reopening. He had to close that door to stop the bleeding of your spirit. Rejection in his hands becomes redemption. It pulls you back toward identity, toward peace, toward purpose. It reminds you that you are not hard to love. You were just offering love to someone who didn't know how to receive it. And when you finally understand that, rejection loses its sting. You stop seeing it as the end and start seeing it as the rescue that it really was. One day, you'll thank God that they walked away. You'll realize that if they had stayed, you would have never met the version of yourself that learned how to stand alone with strength. Because sometimes the person who left was the answer to the prayer you didn't know how to pray. If this message spoke to your heart, write in the comments, God turned my rejection into protection. Every act of protection from God carries a purpose far deeper than your understanding. He doesn't just remove people. He redirects your path. He doesn't just end relationships. He preserves your destiny. What felt like a loss was actually a lesson, and what felt like absence was alignment. You see, God never takes without reason. He removes what can't go where he's leading you. There are seasons in your life that require solitude because certain hearts can't survive the altitude of your calling. They were meant for your past, not your purpose, and keeping them would have meant sacrificing the peace he died to give you. When God protects you, he's not trying to make you lonely. He's trying to make you ready, because the truth is, you can't step into your next chapter while still holding on to what was written for your previous one. He knows that unhealed attachments can't carry healed assignments. So he separates to strengthen. He isolates to elevate. He breaks what binds so he can build what blesses. Every tear you cried in confusion was watering the soil of transformation. Every why you whispered was planting seeds of wisdom. And one day the answers will bloom, not in explanations but in peace. You'll look back and realize that the relationship he ended was the very thing that made space for the version of you that was always meant to emerge. Livramento is never random. It's redirection with divine precision. God saw that. Staying there would delay what he designed for you. That's why he interrupted it even when you were praying for him to fix it, because he wasn't trying to repair what was broken. He was rescuing what was buried, your purpose, your clarity, your worth. There's beauty in what didn't work out, because what didn't work was never meant to last. And when God closes a door, it's because he already built something better behind the next one. You'll thank him later for every no that guided you closer to your true calling. The purpose of your protection was never to leave you empty. It was to prepare you for the fullness that's coming. There will come a day when the ache will quiet down, when the memories that once hurt will no longer sting, and the questions that kept you awake will finally fade into peace. On that day, you'll see clearly what you can't see now, that God's protection was never punishment. It was preparation wrapped in mercy. You'll remember how you begged him to let it work, how you prayed for signs, how you tried to hold on when everything was falling apart. And you'll smile, not because it didn't hurt, but because you'll finally understand his no was your salvation. Every unanswered prayer was him saying, I love you too much to let this continue. He knew that your heart couldn't heal while still holding what broke it. He knew that the love you wanted would have cost you the peace he promised. So he stepped in, quietly, lovingly, and removed what your Emotions were too attached to release. And though it felt like loss, it was the beginning of liberation. Time has a way of revealing what pain tries to hide. The very things you once cried over become the proof of God's faithfulness. Because as the years pass, you begin to notice the doors that opened because that one closed, the people who entered your life once that person left, the peace that only came after the silence. And in that revelation, gratitude replaces grief. You'll thank Him for unanswered prayers. You'll thank Him for the distance that once hurt. You'll thank Him for the loneliness that turned into strength. Because you'll realize that He never ignored you. He was always intervening. When you finally see what He saved you from, gratitude will overflow where pain once lived. You'll stop asking, "Why did it end?" and start whispering, "Thank you for ending it." Because sometimes the greatest blessings are the ones that never began. And when understanding meets healing, you'll recognize that God's protection wasn't just about that relationship. It was about your destiny. The day you understand is the day you'll stop mourning what left and start praising the God who never did. Now that you've seen what God was truly doing, you can finally breathe. You can stop calling it rejection and start calling it redemption, because He never took someone away to leave you empty. He removed them to give you back to yourself. His protection was not about punishment. It was about preservation. He didn't just save you from a person. He saved you from becoming someone you were never meant to be. Every closed door, every unanswered message, every unexpected goodbye, they were all chapters of mercy. You thought you were being forgotten, but you were being fought for. You thought you were losing love, but you were gaining freedom. And one day you'll realize that God didn't stop that relationship because He wanted you to suffer. He stopped it because He saw that love would have broken what He was trying to heal. The truth is, His no is never cruel. It's the language of a father who sees further than you do. He knows the hearts you trust too quickly, the pain you hide too deeply, the loneliness that makes you hold on too long. So He steps in, and sometimes the kindest thing He can do is end what you thought you needed. The protection was never against love, it was against destruction. Because love, real love, never demands you to lose your peace to keep it. And what's from God will never pull you away from Him. It will lead you straight back. So tonight, take a moment to breathe and let the gratitude settle in. You survived what was never meant to stay. You were protected from what you kept praying for. And that's not rejection. That's divine mercy in disguise. If you made it to this part of the video, that means this message was meant for you. Check if you're subscribed to the channel. Because here, every word is made to heal, restore, and remind you that God still writes perfect endings. Leave a comment saying, "Thank you, God, for my protection." That's your declaration tonight, your way of saying, "I finally see what you were saving me from." And don't forget to like this video and watch the next one that's appearing on your screen. It continues this same journey of healing, purpose, and divine protection. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't what God gives. It's what He never lets you lose yourself to.